I want to do a couple of segments now about the philosophy of Stoicism. I was asked about it yesterday on the podcast, and I gave an abbreviated sort of introduction to Stoicism. But I want to say more about it because I think it's actually a very interesting philosophy that is quite practical at a time when our culture seems to have gone in the opposite direction. Our culture is all about passion and follow your passion and have strong feelings and parade your feelings and put them out there and how do you feel? And Stoicism is about the rational control of passion. Now, it's not the absence of passion. We sometimes misunderstand Stoicism as the stiff upper lip, a guy who has no feelings. No. Very often, it is a mechanism for controlling, regulating, and properly expressing your feelings so that they're appropriate to the occasion. Debbie sometimes calls me a stoic. She goes, "You're a stoic." And I say, "Well, what do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, you never complain." And well, that's sort of true. I mean, by and large, I try not to complain. If I have a headache or I have a toothache, I won't say anything. Not because I'm not feeling the pain, but because I want to exercise a certain kind of self-control. I can manage the pain. I'll certainly take the steps to do something about it. I'll make an appointment to go see the dentist. But I feel why trouble other people with something that I can cope with, I can deal with. So I guess I would say I take a certain pride in not complaining about small things. Now, Stoicism, to that degree, was helpful to me in the confinement center. Why? Because in a sense I was able to, and I mentioned this yesterday, detach myself a little bit intellectually from that environment. Obviously, I knew I'm in the environment. I knew there were certain elements of risk, perhaps even danger. Quite frankly, in the confinement center, I was a little more worried about the government planting drugs in my locker than I was about any of my so-called fellow convicts. But nevertheless, there was an element I was concerned about all that. But at the same time, I was able to live, you might say, inside my mind and also observe. Treat the confinement center as a kind of stage for anthropological observation. In my book, which came out of all that, called Stealing America, talks about this in some detail. Now, back to Stoicism, or zooming into Stoicism. The word itself has nothing to do with the Stoic philosophy. In fact, it actually means a kind of open porch. So the Stoics would gather together and discuss their ideas in a kind of open porch area, and the porch itself is called the Stoa, and that's where we get the name Stoic. Some of the famous Stoics of the ancient world. Stoicism, by the way, was the most influential philosophy of the ancient world, by which I mean the world of ancient Greece and Rome. As a school, it was far more influential than even the Socratic philosophy, although the Stoics were influenced by the Socratic philosophy. Plato's school, Aristotle's school, they didn't last that far beyond Plato and Aristotle. There was a kind of Neoplatonism that developed later, but the Stoics were the commanding school, you might say, and important figures. The Roman writer Seneca was a Stoic. The Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic. And his famous work called Meditations is an expression of the Stoic philosophy. Now, it's interesting to know that in the Roman era, in classical antiquity, philosophy did the work that today is largely done by religion. Now, today we think of religion, the Bible, for example, as an important source, if not the primary source, of morals. That's where we learn the Ten Commandments, do this, don't do that. The Bible teaches us how to live. But interestingly, in Greek and Roman philosophy, the gods didn't do that. The gods, you made sacrifices to them, and you had certain rites that you followed, and you consulted the oracle to try to get wisdom about what might happen in the future. But Roman and Greek religion said nothing, weirdly enough, about morality. That was the job of philosophy. And so the Stoicism, in that sense, should be understood as an ethical philosophy. But an ethical philosophy that says what? To what end? What is it trying to convey? Now, yesterday I mentioned the person who's probably most famously associated with Stoicism, which is the former slave Epictetus, later freed and then formed his own school And I want to begin by talking about two examples from Epictetus's work where he's describing what Stoicism is. And I want to ask what we today can kind of learn from this. So the first thing he says, he's talking about another Stoic named Agrippinus. And he says Agrippinus was told, this is he was an influential figure in Rome, and he was told, good luck, Agrippinus, you are being tried for crimes in the Senate. And how did Agrippinus respond? Agrippinus said, it's 11 in the morning, and this is the hour in which I take my bath and exercise. So let us now go off to do those things. Amazingly, Agrippinus seems unruffled that he's being tried in the Senate. He thinks it's really important for him to follow his schedule and take his bath and do his exercise. Then he comes back and he asks, how did it go? How did this hearing, this in the Senate go? And he said, have I been condemned to death or to exile? And he's told, to exile. And then Agrippinus goes, and my estate, what about that? Has it been confiscated? And they said, no, they haven't confiscated your estate. So Agrippinus goes, oh, well, in that case, let us go to my villa in Acretia and let's have lunch there. So Agrippinus responds as if, well, that's what they decided. Let's come back here to Epictetus' key point. Control your own mind. You do not control external circumstances. That's for other people to decide. You do control the way that you respond to them. And basically, Agrippinus' view is, I can't control what they've decided. By the way, the question of Agrippinus' guilt or innocence should be set to the side. We don't know. But here's Agrippinus concluding this discussion. He goes, look, at some point, he says, I have to die. If it is now, well, then I die now. If it's later, then now is the time for me to take my lunch, since the hour for lunch has arrived. Now, to some degree, if you read this today, you're like, this is ridiculous. This is like, in today's culture, this would almost seem like a subject for comedy. But no, I think what Epictetus is trying to say is that this kind of mental detachment can be very instructive and sometimes in a very difficult situation. I'm going to give another brief example, which is a little shocking. Epictetus says, basically, don't become permanently attached to things. And he mentions like a water jug or a crystal cup. And we're likely to agree, don't be too attached to these things. But then he says this. He goes, if you kiss your child or brother, you must remind yourself that you love a mortal, and nothing you love is your very own. It is given to you for the moment, not forever or inseparably, but like a fig or a bunch of grapes. And then this. So if you long for your son or your friend, when it is not given to you to have him, know that you are longing for a fig in the wintertime. Wow. Now, many people might misinterpret this and go, Epictetus, you're so insensitive. You're basically saying that we should treat our dearest loved ones kind of like, like a water jug or a crystal cup. But this is actually not what Epictetus is saying. He's actually describing a harsh truth in life, which is to say that we don't control the destiny of other people. Horrible things can happen in the world. Remember, first of all, Epictetus is writing at a time when people frequently lost a son or a daughter. Even the Emperor Marcus Aurelius lost the majority of his children. So what he's saying is that this kind of loss is a part of life. And so rather than simply treat this loss as something irreparable, value the time that you have with these people now. That's really the message of the Stoicism, is recognize the fragility, the impermanence of life, and having recognized that as one of life's undeniable truths, adapt your mind to that situation and appreciate the things you have, because you won't always have them.